الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ألهمنا مراشد أمورنا وأعذنا من شرور أنفسنا. The crux of today's lecture will be regarding or focusing around a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In reaching Medina Munawwara, the most important amal or act that took place was the establishing of the Khilafat. And thereafter everything worked around the Khilafat. When Allah's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam described fitan, trials that the Ummah will see, one of the narrations which had a unique place in the discussion of the scholars is this narration which we will now translate, read. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimullah narrates, the Sahabi radiallahu anh is Nu'man ibn Bashir radiallahu anh. He says, we were sitting in the Masjid when Abu Tha'laba al-Khushani comes and he says, does anyone here know about the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the leaders? That this ummah will see which leaders, what type of leaders. فقال حذيفة رضي الله عنه, Hudhayfa bin Yaman رضي الله عنه was known as the one who had many secrets with regards to the future. He had learned from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the trials that the ummah will see. He says, Allah's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, تكون النبوة فيكم ما شاء الله أن تكون. That how long Allah wishes, nubuwah will remain amongst you, meaning Allah's Nabi will remain alive. ثم يرفعها الله إذا شاء يرفعها. Then when Allah wishes to take His Nabi away, this ummah will have then no Nabi. And that happened on the 10th year of the Hijri. ثم تكون خلافة على منهاج النبوة. Thereafter there will be vicegerents, a khalif, and those khulafa will practice on the manner that the Nabi had left them. In one narration it was made clear it will be a period of 30 years, and the 30 years practically ended with the khilafah of Ali radiallahu anhu. So there will be an era of khulafa on the method which the Anbiya had left. فَتَكُونُ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ أَن تَكُونُ. It will be an era where there was simplicity, where the rule was with simplicity, the ruler was simple. Until the era of Ali radiallahu anh, he was the Khalif, he had gone over to Iraq. But if someone had to go visit his house, he would not find a king at all, he would find what was someone saying, I am nothing but the vicegerent of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ثم تكون ملكا عاضا. Then there will be kingship, عاضا, which will bite on itself. Adda means with your teeth to hold on to something. A translation of this that some scholars have given is heredity. Hereditary power means that the king, when he time to give it over, in sincerity he can't just leave it. He can't trust anyone to take now the work that he has done. So the best that he feels for the ummah is to keep it in the family. The first king who did this was Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. And he had nothing that there was wrong that he did. Because when they asked Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, why don't you do like when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, the ummah chose. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu said, this ummah now does not have anyone like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. that everyone will just unite against him. They're not going to unite, they're going to fight. Then he said, okay, be like Abu Bakr radiallahu anh and choose someone like Umar out of your family. He said, if you show me an Umar, I'll choose an Umar. But I'm not finding. He said, whoever you're going to say to choose, this country is not going to be happy with it. If I choose someone from Sham, Iraq won't be happy. I choose from Hijaz, Sham, Misr won't be happy. And they're going to continue fighting. He said, I took them out of war. Muawiyah radiallahu anh was a unique Islamic leader. He came into leadership when the Muslim Ummah were at war. People fought against somebody else, really fought, where one was responsible for the demise of the other. But amazing was his stance that he took, and with the help of Almighty Allah, that people who just the other day were fighting each other now are working together. And this is the shan of Islam. When Allah Ta'ala wants it to happen, the enemy can never understand. It is beyond their understanding. How can people fighting become friends? Allah Ta'ala gave us the opportunity to visit Afghanistan recently. In Afghanistan, there are people who worked for the old regime, what is known as the American regime, for 20 years. They were known as sellouts. They worked for the regime. And then the new Islamic Imara came. America had to disappear. They left all these sellouts and they went. So the normal in our system is when the new person comes in, the first he will say, I'm going to get rid of everyone who worked for the previous regime. Bring them here, lock them up, torture them. Because many people of the previous regime were responsible for the new regime's people to be kept in jail for years. So the system of the world is such that when a new regime comes, the first law is revenge. Allah Ta'ala will always create in this ummah. Muawiyah radiallahu anh, in his era he did this. He said, for the ummah now to move forward, we'll have to just forget it ever happened. And to forget it ever happens is not easy on the victor. Because you're seeing the one who fought against you and you acting like he never fought against you. So in Afghanistan we asked that how does the businesses work now? Because it's not just small businesses, it's companies, it's government offices. It was amazing when they said that whoever worked for the old regime, if it is men, not one of them have been removed from their post. And the new regime has been told to work with the people of the old regime. Now I'm asking a person, how does it feel when you work with that man? He says, some of the people we work with, we know they were the ones that spied us. And because of which we were tortured for years. He said, but when we started working, the first few weeks were very hard. And we were told you'll have to forgive and forget for the sake of Islam. He said, I used to look at this person, and then he said, we were taught one thing. He said, they told us that, see, these people have no enmity against Islam. They worked for the old regime only for money. It wasn't they never liked Islam, they only liked money. So because America was going to give them money, that's why they did it. He said, if today we take away their money, they will lose their Islam. Because the first time they did it for money. He said, let's rather leave them with their money. Let's leave them with their money. And at least they'll get Islam. He said that one thought when we look at these people is that I want him to get Islam. Then we visited a madrasa which is called the Madrasa of the Orphans. But the Madrasa of the Orphans of the Martyrs, meaning the children of the martyrs. So it's a madrasa where you give charity, you say your father died for Islam, your father died for Islam. So there was a bayan that took place at the madrasa. One ustad spoke and he gave himmat to the students. It's not easy to be an orphan. Then on the side when we're sitting with the principal, he's saying to us that Now the hardest part in this madrasa is all these children, most of them are poisoned, meaning their mind is poisoned. So I asked him, what do you mean the mind is poisoned? Who poisoned their mind? He said, no, their parents put them in American schools. So now, it never makes sense now. These are the children of the martyrs. So I said, why would their father put them? So he said, no, their fathers worked for the regime. Their fathers, they worked for the American regime. So somebody else asked, so why are you telling us it's a madrasa of the children of the martyrs? I mean, their parents are not martyrs. They work for the regime. He said the law of the Islamic Emirat is that whoever passed away in this war, irrespective of which side you worked for, you are been known as a martyr. So that child that will grow up will never have a stigma on his name. No one will be able to tell him your father was a sellout. Everyone is martyr. All of them. But it's not just a name. Because his father is a martyr, that child and that child's mother is deserving of a allowance from the government. That government is going to give the allowance to all the martyrs' children. So they are actually giving money to the people who died fighting against them. So you also are martyr. Imagine that level of a heart. All martyrs. So no child, so every child you meet, you're telling a child, Mubarak to your father. Now you're learning that no Mubarak to your father. What a law. Then they explained with regards to the woman. Whoever worked for the old regime, they did it for money. To take away that money from them is to take away their deen also. So there's two classes of women. One is those women who are working in environments where they can't create a parda system. It will take a while. So they pull those women out of their shops, their businesses, their offices. And they promised every one of them whatever you were earning with your salary increase yearly, you will continue receiving that every month. Until the day comes where we can put you back into your work again. So it means they're paying every woman who worked for the old regime, even if she is now not working. And those that they could create a parda system, then they immediately brought that one in. Again, their word is, these people were ready to join the enemy for money. Now we can't take away their money. They don't have that iman. We saw examples in this land, what we will read about in the kitabs after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Islam is amazing. There are people whose hearts are still like that. And the world will see much more as we're going further. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, when he sat in power, the Ummah had seen war, Muslim fighting Muslim, but he took it out. Now when the time of his demise came, he did not want the war to start again. So he had to make the first decision, which was a very difficult decision, that he was going to appoint his own son. And then some opposed it on the issue that Allah's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam never do it. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu never appoint his son. Umar radiallahu anhu never appoint his son. Why are you doing it? And he had his reasoning. He said, I don't find anybody else. But once he appointed his son, then it stayed in the family after that. It was either the son or it was someone in the family. If not the son, the brother's son. From that time, Allah allowed Islam to see 2 Khilafats. And after 2 Khilafats, there was a third one that also in a certain aspect took the name of a Khilafah. So it was the Umayyad Khilafah, which started with Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and then it had its era. Then there was an Abbasid Khilafah, which was established in Iraq. And thereafter it moved into the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire was the most scary that Europe had ever seen, which many youngsters today know about Usman and the mighty Usmani Ottoman Empire. During these 3 empires, however, it remained in the family. If it entered, example, with Usman or his father Ertugrul, then it will be Usman, then it will be his son Burhan, then it will carry on in the family. They would never allow it to go out because it's not easy to choose someone from outside. Can you trust the person or not? You know your own son is not a hypocrite. He might be lazier, he might not be so strong, but he's not a hypocrite, so you trust your own. So there was that era, and that era lasted till very recent. 3 Khilafas, the Umayyad, the Abbasid, the Ottoman. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, so then you will see a rule where people will hold on with their teeth, meaning it will be kept in the family. Said then Allah Ta'ala will lift that up when He desires to lift it. Then there will be mulkan jabariya. Then there will be a rule which will be oppressive. In another narration it comes, after this rule will be the Mahdi. After this rule will be the Mahdi. Then there will be a rule which is oppressive. The English of this here is oppressive regimes. Oppressive regimes started about 100, 110, 100 years ago. As soon as the Khilafah was abolished, just before that, where the Muslim lands were cut up. And now no longer it was a Khilafat looking after Sham, and a Khilafah looking after Misr, and a Khilafah looking after Hijaz. It was made into, we used to call it in the past, puppet governments. But the word puppet government is a very light word. Because when you hear puppet, it means like he's a puppet. This was not puppets, these were oppressive regimes. Height of Zulam, which sometimes the person will describe it in this manner that he said, if I was brought into the prison, I would be making dua that a non-Muslim must be sent to interrogate me. Because when the Muslim comes to interrogate me, he got no limits to his zulam. Even the non-Muslim doesn't do that. This is what the world saw in the last 100 years. Whoever entered into a prison in the different countries of the Muslim lands, he would say that the zulam, the oppression of a man whose name is Ahmed, it was much, much more than a man whose name is John. Whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it was in Pakistan, whether it was in Saudi Arabia, whether it was in Sham, whether it was in Jordan, that high level of zulam and oppression, mulkan jabariya, it will be an oppressive regime, oppressive regimes. And with World War, that was established. But it would not end there. The purpose of the regimes now, and from here we will start discussing. Before World War, there was 2 times where Islam really, people thought that this is the end. The first was when the Crusades came into the Muslim world, and they landed in the lands of Sham, and to ensure that no one ever breaks through now, they established 4 kingdoms. So 4 kingdoms, so there's no chance of a Muslim ummah ever going. This ummah has 3 lands, which is the focus of the dini power and spirituality of Islam. Everything else then is a follower, it's a tabi of these 3. One is Hijaz-e-Muqaddas, what we will call Makkah Mukarrama and the surrounding areas, and the focal of it is the Kaaba. This is the land of spirituality. This is the main target of every enemy of Islam. But the Kaaba is so unique that as in the first, where there was no one to protect the Kaaba, and Abraha came with his army, and he even said to Abdul Muttalib, why don't you come out to fight? And Abdul Muttalib gave an answer that the Kaaba has its own master, and he will look after his house. And when Abraha's army came of elephants, Allah Ta'ala, how he looked after the Kaaba without any protection. From that day till today, the Kaaba has been looked after without any protection. The Crusades launched their attack on Islam. Their real mission was to go to the Kaaba. Kaaba had no army protecting it, but the Crusades couldn't reach them. When they even said, now we're going to Jeddah, that's when it was finished. They just said that day and Allah Ta'ala made them start crumbling. The Mongols were the next. So one is Hijaz-e-Muqaddas, the Kaaba. And the Kaaba has such a unique protection that without any physical protection of man, the Kaaba just stands. That I am untouchable. For 1,400 years, whichever enemy came, they never reached the Kaaba. The second is known as the lands of Sham. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, when he spoke of the conquering of Sham, Sham was a Roman land. It was a mighty Roman empire. He spoke that you will conquer Sham. Thereafter he said, from Sham, لا تزال عصابة من أمتي. In the lands of Sham, they will continuously be a part of my ummah, fighting on the doors of Aqsa and around it, and fighting on the doors of Damascus and around it. Then he would say, لا يضرهم من خذلهم. Even if the rest of the world forsakes, abandons, leaves them. In one narration he said, sometimes if you find them going down, they'll come up again. Meaning this army will never be totally destroyed until this army will be the ones fighting against the false Messiah, the Dajjal. They will be the ones that will link up with the Mahdi. His Khilafat will be in Damascus. And Allah Ta'ala will bring the victory of Islam through this Jama'ah. When the Crusades came, they launched their attack against the army of Sham. And they established 4 kingdoms to make sure this army, as the hadith mentioned, if they go down, they'll definitely come up. To make sure they don't ever come up. 4 Christian kingdoms. They abolished Salah in every masjid. For 90 years they held a rule in the land of Sham. But as the hadith mentioned, this army, if it goes down, it will come up. 90 years later, under the rule of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, the army of Sham never died. They rose, 4 kingdoms of the Christians were destroyed, disappeared. About 100 years or 80 years later, it was the Mongolian Tatar attack. Again, they launched it on Sham. They thought they had wiped out the entire army of Sham. And as the hadith mentioned, if ever it goes down, it's going to come up again. And then the Mongolian Tatars, history Uli has recorded their stories. Nobody else knows where they went. They disappeared. But as the hadith mentioned, the army of Sham is still there. With World War, Sham was broken into many pieces. But now the enemy were not going to do what they did the first 2 times. The first 2 times is they settled in the land, and they thought by us staying in the land we'll be able to do what we need to do. Now what they had to do is we'll take over the land and hand it over to a Muslim to fight Muslim. That was known as oppressive regimes. But as I said, how much a Muslim can oppress, even the non-Muslim would not go to that limits. When these oppressive regimes were put in the lands of Sham, and it was cut into pieces, so it became Jordan, it became Syria, it became part of Turkey, it became Palestine. And you have different lands cut, and you got leaders on each one. And they created a thought in the people also, you Syrian, you not a Muslim, you Syrian. So if a Jordanian is being attacked, it got nothing to do with you. Don't like him. He is Jordan, you Syrian, hate each other. And like that, their people grew up in this feeling that if he is being oppressed, it's his story. He must stand up for his own. As long as there was a Khilafat, the Khilafah had shown the meaning in the Ummah that the Muslim Ummah is like a body. If there's pain in one part of the body, the entire body feels the pain. Feels the pain means it does something immediately to remedy the pain. Today we are a body, but not a body, a living body. Because we also feel the pain. Who doesn't feel the pain of what's happening? But we are that body that we feel the pain, but we can't do anything to remedy the pain. So we feel the pain and we just say that I can't help it. Forget the pain, because there's no Khilafat. As long as there was a Khilafat, if they felt the pain, the entire Muslim world would respond to the pain. So they destroyed the Khilafah, and now they cut up the land of Sham into pieces so that the army of Sham will never rise. But as the hadith has mentioned, if it ever goes down, it has to come up again. Many oppressive regimes were brought, especially in the land of Sham, in the land of Jordan. A lot of oppression took place in this last 100 years. As the hadith mentioned, if someone now visits the land of Syria, you will wonder that how did this army ever come? Where did they get training? Where did they become so strong? Where did they learn Islam so hard, so strong? There was so much of oppression. But as Allah's Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, it's a miracle of the land. An army in this land has already been created. Afghanistan was also mentioned in the narration as Khurasan. An indication was made in the hadith that from Khurasan there will be the help of the Mahdi. Meaning a major army of Khurasan will always be at the aid of the Mahdi. Khurasan's mention in the narration brought Russia on Khurasan, Afghanistan. Russia came to make sure this army never stands. England also came before Russia, then Russia came. Then America, not America, the whole world came. It was not only America. America was too scared to go. They made every country send their people. The whole world came. After all of that day, if you go in Afghanistan today, as the narration mentioned, the army of Khurasan, that army is ready. So much of effort. So Hijaz, the Kaaba has protected itself without any protection. The land of Sham, the hadith mentioned, there will continuously be an army fighting. But every time it goes down, which means there will be many times it will go down. So it's going to come up again. Every time it goes down, and it went down. It went down when the Crusades came. It went down when the Tartars came. It went down when World War took place and the whole European world came. It like disappeared and from nowhere it came up again. And we are seeing that in the lands of Sham. Third land is known as Misr. Misr. These three lands are mentioned in a surah we read many a time. Watini was Zaytun. Teen refers to the fig. Zaytun refers to an olive. The fig and olive refers to the mountains of the fig and the olive. The mountains of the fig is the mountains of Damascus. Olive is the mountains of Al-Aqsa. Damascus and Al-Aqsa refers to Sham. By the oath of Sham, Waturi Sinin refers to by the oath of the mountains. The Sinai mountains means Misr. And the last one, وَهَذَا الْبَلَدِ الْأَمِينَ, by the oath of this most blessed land, Makkah Mukarramah. What is Misr now? So when they cut up Misr, we understood one became Egypt and one became Gaza. Otherwise in Misr, the end of Misr is where Gaza ends. And where Gaza ends, Sham will start. So you got Sham, you got Misr, and you got Hijaz. And it is these three lands that is the center of spirituality and the strength of Islam. Spirituality of the past, Sham was the land, markaz of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. His birth, his da'wah. Misr was the markaz of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. His birth, his da'wah. And all the miracles of Musa alayhi salam, Misr. All the miracles of Isa alayhi salam, Sham. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was an alami Nabi. So for him there was not going to be one land, Makkah. Immediately for him was going to be Sham and Misr, part of his Islam. And then from this Misr, Sham and Hijaz Muqaddas, Islam was going to go in the entire world. Ali Muhammad Tayyib Sahib Rahimullah, when he wrote after the Khilafah fell, he must have written this year a good about maybe 40 years ago perhaps. He wrote, no matter how much effort the enemy makes, Allah will bring that day again where these three lands will come under the rule of one individual. That is what is called, as the hadith mentioned, that after there will be the oppressive regime, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, then the Khilafah ala minhaji nubuwa will be re-established. Then the Khilafah in the manner that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had established it, it will just be re-established. That word just be re-established. The other day someone said to me, it doesn't seem possible. I said, exactly that's what the narration mentions. That when you will not think it possible at all, it will just stand. We are at the moment on the verge. We are at the moment going through the revolution. And the revolution brings upon that time. 100 years have already passed of this Mulkan Jabariya, oppressive regime. Allah's system is on the turn of every 100 years. He lets someone stand or some group stand. Yujaddidu amra hadha deen. That rectifies the matter of this deen. 100 years have passed, so definitely those groups have already been born. Yab'athu. And as they are reaching the age of strength, in different lands, we are already seeing the results. Muslim armies have already been created. People have come out of that old system of being modern, loving to be modern. Forget in the Muslim world, even in the Christian world, there's a feeling towards what is Islam. People are reverting to Islam in numbers we can never imagine. A lot has happened in this last 100 days. When people ask, is this the ending? Like this Gaza, is this the ending? Our answer is, this is the beginning. This is the beginning. So much has already happened in this 100 days, which has made things go very fast. Armies are already on the wait for the call of one individual. On that call, it will just be a puppet, an oppressive regime removed. Already those oppressive regimes are so scared of the people in their countries. They were never scared in the past. Now at the moment they are very scared. They talk every day about this is your end. The people are now fed up. They're no longer scared. Even in the military there's movements. Once upon a time from A to Z in the military there was not one person performing salah. Now in the militaries in Muslim countries, there's musallas established. The person wearing the cap, height of the military, he is the one reading Quran, he's reading Salah, he's reading Tahajjud. And Allah Ta'ala wants change. As the hadith mentioned, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described it all. He even described the oppressive regime. And he said after that day, the Khilafah will also be established. The effort of the enemy was that this Khilafah must never be established. So three lands, Sham, Misr and Hijaz were divided. They were put in different people's lands. When we come to Misr, in Makkah Mukarramah the focus is the Kaaba. In Sham the focus is Al-Aqsa. In Misr the focus is a land or an area called Gaza. This has always been the focus, and special virtue has been mentioned regarding this area. And what we are seeing today, when people ask that miraculous are these people fighting, in one narration it is mentioned that when you will conquer Misr, put a big portion of your army in Misr, because that will be like Allah's best army. And when they asked why is that, then the answer was given because they and their families. Everywhere else, Islam always had it, a man, a boy fights. A family doesn't fight. Family means a wife, a daughter, a sister, children. This narration said they were dhurriya. Another wording, they wa ahl. They and their family will stand in the defense of Islam till the ending. They and their family. This is one land where you find people and their families. Children standing, women standing. They and their family. This land of Gaza, from 1980 already Israel reached Gaza. And from that time they're trying to enter. Amazing this land of Misr is. It has always proven as a defense. In the end of time, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, when the surge of the Ya'juj Ma'juj will take place, Nabi Isa alayhi salam will find his fort of protection at Mount Tur. Mount Tur refers to this land which is known as Misr, and especially this area which refers to Gaza. When the Crusades came, they destroyed Sham. After Sham was Misr. Starting with Gaza and the entire Misr, and then you go into Hijaz. Soon as the eye turned towards Misr, Allah Tabarak Ta'ala brought Salahuddin al-Ayyubi into Misr. In Misr, he managed to push away the Christians. They lost their hopes on Misr. And after he sorted out the issue of Misr, from Misr he went into Sham, the army rose and the Christians were pushed out. Then came the Tatars, Mongols. They landed in the lands of Sham. They destroyed the army, as I mentioned. This army goes down and then comes up again. After Sham, it was only Misr and then was Hijaz. The Mongols reached a level where they were known as unbeatable, untouchable. It was said, if someone says to you, the Mongols have been defeated, don't believe them. You can believe anything, don't believe this. They were butchers. They entered into cities. They brought cities down. They killed. What is recorded in the books, hundreds of thousands. But we speak about today, 30,000 have been recorded as martyred in this last 100 days. But in the books of history, they speak about when the Mongols entered. In 5 days, that's what's recorded in the books, over 100,000. But there's exaggeration behind that, or whether it was, but because the Mongols entered into cities, and when they left, there was no one alive in the city. And at that time, because you don't have something called WhatsApp, so there's no way other people can know what's happening in one town. So if you enter the town and you kill everyone in the town, even if it's 300,000, there's no one to say, hey, what's happening? Because the news doesn't reach the next town. So those numbers are highly possible. Because at that time there was no one from far who could say, stop. The Mongols were not, there was no barriers. After Sham, the Mongols, they only had to go into Egypt, Misr, and from Misr, Hijaz. And they reached Misr, and Allah Tabarak Ta'ala made it. This army of Misr has always been amazing. They became again a fort, and the Mongols banged against them, and it was their first defeat. They had never been defeated, they got defeated here. And with the defeat of the Mongols, their power, that thought of theirs collapsed. And then many armies started standing up, and in Sham the army again rose. And then today the world don't even know who the Mongols were. But Islam. Then came World War. When World War came, Sham was needed. Misr was needed. Hijaz was needed. Oppressive regimes were needed. With oppressive regimes, now we will do what the Mongols and the Crusades couldn't do. We will take all these lands. All the lands. But amazing, after World War, they took the lands. After taking the lands, look at like in the last 100 years. As for the Kaaba, there was a time when they actually brought music right at the doorstep of the Kaaba. Right at the doorstep. Mufti Shafi Sahib Rahimullah, in his era, he started writing to the government, you are discussing other issues. Music is being played right by the Kaaba. because televisions were being brought in. And in those televisions, then movies were coming in, Hollywood. And in Hollywood, filthy movies were now going to be viewed in the hotel right by the Kaaba. And who was going to stop it? Because the regime was theirs. But the Kaaba never ever looked for any physical protection. At that time, something happened in the land of Hijaz, and so many laws were put in place, which did not allow that music to then be played. And then a time came where they needed to expand the haram. They needed. So Medina Munawwara of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's time, today the haram is Medina of his era. The haram had to be expanded. With the expansion of the haram of Medina Munawwara, if someone has to say, does evil happen in Medina, you will be able to say till today in the Medina of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, no evil happens. Because in that haram, there is absolutely no evil. The Kaaba got its own protection. Laws were made. The government never wanted those laws. At that time, they never wanted the law. It's the same progeny today. They never wanted, they brought in those movies and a law came suddenly. They never wanted that law. Law was on the woman's dressing. Law was on what can be watched, what can be screened. This is the haram. If you ask like who protected the Kaaba, I will say how the Kaaba was protected in the beginning. The Kaaba remains. It gets its own protection. When the enemy come again to the Kaaba, again the Kaaba pushes them out. Allah's Nabi also said, my Medina is the same. He said, how the fire burns the dirt out of everything. He says, my Medina will burn the dirt out. And they'll come in with dirt, my Medina will push it out. Come in with dirt, my Medina will push it out. Amazing these two. Hijaz. As for Misr, with World War, they managed to get Misr under oppressive regime. But the entire Misr, that one land would stand out, Gaza. It just stood. It was so small and insignificant and trivial. At the time came, they said, don't worry about one small part of Misr. The whole Misr is ours. Misr had something called the Muslim Brotherhood. It was brought down, it was oppressed, it was removed, it was jailed. Gaza was a small piece. That small piece is giving them headaches till today. And that is why in this last, from October, they went wild for Gaza. And if we do not finish this Gaza now, we will not be able to destroy that army of Islam. But they went wild for Gaza. And what they thought in 1 week, the entire thing will be over, chapter closed. The world will say, hold on. By the time the world says, hold on, you say, finished. But they entered. Russia entered Afghanistan. They said, we will get in there 7 days or 8 days. Within 8 days, the work will be done and we're out. And Russia got stuck for 10 years. America entered Afghanistan. For them, it was just go in, sort it out, put the regime, game over. They got stuck for 20 years. Amazing, the Islamic armies. This group entered into Gaza, what they thought, 3 days. And they are already stuck. How long they will be stuck? But this land, as they have shown miracles in the past, we have hope it's going to show its miracle again. This miracle is going to be different from the previous ones also. It is the beginning of something new. The beginning of something new. The era of oppressive regimes is now collapsing in all the countries. If a person reads news and he reads the news through the news, you will understand that the oppressive regimes in all the countries is now shaking. It is really shaking. Allah Ta'ala inspires hearts. People start seeing the truth. Simple people who had no relationship. In Turkey, when they voted in this new government, the new government means the government of the last few years. But in this last elections, the European, Shaitani, Western world, they send millions, or you can say billions, into Turkey to pay people to vote for a certain party. to make sure this government does not win. They made so much of conspiracies and efforts and spending that it's like they had conviction they will win this. Convinced. The people voted for an Islamic party. When they were asked, why did you vote for an Islamic party? Because the people are still not pious. The people's answer was that although I myself don't read all my salah, but because this government likes Islam, I like the government. Some people think all of them are very pious in the country of Turkey, Istanbul. Some of them are so modern, so modern. Some of them have never worn scarf, still not wearing scarf. But when the time to vote came, something came in their heart that they said, this group likes Islam, I like Islam. As they want it, other countries also. People on the ground, the outside might not show it. But hearts, where people are reverting to Islam, Muslims are returning to Islam. What was a while ago where people felt shy of Islam, that shyness has now gone. Where people felt Islam is keeping me back, I like a European lifestyle, I like a Western lifestyle. People have today now become like sick of that lifestyle. They have seen the lies of what they call the system of democracy. Every time when they say they vetoed or they stopped the vote, forget Muslims, even non-Muslims are looking shocked. And they say, is this that system that you said is the most humane system for the world? A lot of change has happened. As Afghanistan has established the first system which is free of interest from the beginning till the ending. In the last 100 years, the world never had a system where there's no interest. They established a system. A lot of change is happening in this last 1 year. Allah Ta'ala allow as the change is now moving. Me and you also move in the right direction with the change. When the change is going to happen, there's going to be a lot of changes in our own lives. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's da'wah had to start, certain people had to be ready for sacrifice also. When there's a time for revolution, there's a time for sacrifice. Our sacrifice will never ever be according to the sacrifice of others. Others will sacrifice lives. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. Businesses, houses, they got no businesses, they got no houses. But how they sacrifice? But me and you, we will also have to make some sacrifice. During the revolution, there will be two groups. One group will not be ready for any sacrifice. There's a fear that individual, that group will run towards what is called hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is Muslim name. But as a Muslim is walking, which Quran describes, and it starts raining, then the hypocrite in the rain stops. And then there's thunder and lightning. And that's when he covers himself. And that says, I'm going to run away. And Allah Ta'ala describes this. Oh, كَصَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ فِيهِ ظُلُمَاتُ وَرَعْدُ وَبَرْقُ. Then the hypocrite puts his fingers over his ears. I don't want to hear about scary things. When the storm goes away, the hypocrite opens his eyes and he says, is it safe? That's a hypocrite. One is the hypocrite who's not a believer, only acting like a believer. Allah has saved us all from that. We're not that. That hypocrite is forever and forever in Jahannam. فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. But then there's that other hypocrite who is really sincere as a Muslim. But whenever a difficult condition comes, fear, the fear of losing something beloved to him doesn't allow him to move forward. Allah Ta'ala describes this hypocrite in Quran more than the first hypocrite. Because this hypocrite is a Muslim. He is the one reading Quran, listening to Quran. He is being described, don't do this. When the time of revolution comes, there will be that hypocrite in a big way. Allah Ta'ala save us from them. Already in our mind have it that revolution of Islam is an honor for us all. And my life, if it is to be given for that purpose, then it is really a favor of Allah on me. That for what a mighty purpose, and I was given a share in the same. So if a time comes for a little sacrifice that I will have to one day make, already from now have it in your mind that I must be ready for that sacrifice for Islam. When that time comes, I mustn't be the one pulling away. The easiest way to prepare for that day is Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Man sa'ala Allah ash-shahadata bi-sidqin. Whoever will ask Almighty Allah for martyrdom, and he's really sincere about it, بَلَّغَهُ اللَّهُ مَنَازِلَ الشُّهَدَاءِ. Allah will make him reach the very high ranks of the martyrs, even if he has to die at home. So whoever will make dua for martyrdom will not fall in hypocrisy. Opposite, مَنْ لَمْ يَغْزُو وَلَمْ يُحَدِّثْ بِهِ نَفْسَهُ. Whoever has never had the opportunity to go out fighting for Islam, and that is all of us. There was no Khilafat. وَلَمْ يُحَدِّثْ بِهِ نَفْسَهُ. And he never ever spoke to himself about it. Now that is also us. And that is what we mustn't do. We have to start speaking to ourselves. And the easiest way is to make the dua. So, and he doesn't speak to himself about it. Mata ala shu'batin min nifaq. He will pass away on a branch of hypocrisy. We don't want that. Allah Ta'ala bless us all with martyrdom. Allah Ta'ala let it be a goal in the life of every one of us. In the past, when a child would be born, the first thought that his father or his mother would put in the child is, you are a flag bearer of Islam. That was his motto, that was his goal, that was his aim. Later on in the Ottoman Empire, there was a word, Ghazian or Shaheed. Ghazian means a fighter. Here it means either a victor in the battle, victory in the battle, or martyrdom. There's nothing else in my life. Ghazi and Shaheed. As they grew up, they used to say this, Ghazi and Shaheed. Ghazi meaning my life. Then came a time where a child, when he's born already, his first word is doctor, scientist, money. That happened in this last 100 years. That whenever you would ask someone what you're going to become, there was a time where it was either, are you going to become a hafiz, an alim? So then the father would say, inshallah, like but. But means like, what is going to earn? So that carried on for a while. And Allah's kindness came, that the time came that in every house, now people will say, make dua, my children must become hafiz. Once upon a time, that wasn't there. That's once upon a time, you would tell the person, Allah, make your child hafiz. And the man looks at you like that. He's scared to say inshallah because he doesn't want it. That time changed. Now he's telling, oh, make dua, all my children must be alim. Times have changed. But Islam always goes one higher. Now has come the time where a person must say, make dua, and he must make dua. That Allah, all my children must be martyrs. I must be a martyr, my wife must be a martyr. Normally you will say, Allah grant us martyrdom, you say, everyone quiet. Like, must say Ameen to that. Death has to come. No one's going to die before time. If I tell you, how would you love to die in ihram in front of the Kaaba? Everyone will say Ameen. I'd say, how would you love to die with martyrdom? A death of a martyr is 100 times, 1,000 times, million times better than a death in ihram in front of the Kaaba. After the rank of the Anbiya alayhi salam is the rank of the martyr. Allah Ta'ala bless us all. Ameen. Wa sallallahu ala al-Nabi al-Kareem.
وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى من القول والفعل والهدي إنك على كل شيء قدير. Oh Allah, inspire every one of us towards that action, towards that deed, towards that word which will make you happy with every one of us. Allah, guide every one of us towards that amal that brings us closer towards you and enters us into Jannah. Allah, save every one of us from those actions, from those words, from those deeds that brings upon us your anger. Allah, save us from your anger and the fire of Jahannam. Allah, save us from the fitan of the Dajjal. Allah, save us from all trials and calamities. Grant us the best of this world, the best of the qabr, the best of the year after. Wa sallallahu ala nabiy al-kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.